It's hard to imagine a more consequential election season in terms of the direction that our economy is going to go. And I think to take a step back, in 2008, independent voters in the middle essentially gave President Obama the benefit of the doubt in terms of the direction that he proposed leading the country. 24 months later, that same group of independent voters said, you know what, I want to have a restraining influence for the direction that I've seen this Congress go, that is the 111th Congress. And now, being part of this 112th Congress and trying to work with President Obama and the Senate leadership, there's great challenges, but I think there's some great opportunities there. The country is going to make a consequential decision in obviously a little bit more than a month, but moving forward, we've got a fiscal cliff that is upon us, and that fiscal cliff creates an opportunity, I think, to transition to do something that is foundational, and that is to reform the tax code. So we can get into more detail on where some of those questions and how the debate lies, but it's really not an understatement to suggest that this is an election that's going to have I think, a generational consequence in terms of spending, in terms of the role of government, what's the limitation, how appropriate is it. So to be a part of the debate is an incredibly invigorating thing. My hope is that what he will do is revisit the strategy that he approached the new Congress with. So, in Bob Woodward's book, when he goes through sort of the chapter and verse of the offers that were made and the negotiations back and forth, when John Boehner became Speaker and he reached out to the President half a dozen times to really wrestle with these entitlement programs. It's my hope that President Obama will have learned from that experience, and if he is reelected, to re-engage the House Republicans in a really substantive way. The Speaker reached out to the President on half a dozen occasions and said, look, let's you and I go to the country together and let's explain to the country how the 2/3 of the federal budget is being driven by automatic spending, mandatory spending. And you don't have to come to an agreement on what the remedy is, but let's get a shared premise out there so that most Americans come to the conclusion of really, the nature of spending, what it is that's driving the spending. And now it's the President's prerogative to accept or decline the invitations of the Speaker, but he chose to decline it, and I think that was a mistake. So my response is, I hope that if President Obama is reelected, he'll take Speaker Boehner up on the invitation, and that is to be a transformational president. It means to wrestle these entitlement programs to the ground and come up with a solution that's really worthy of consideration. Well, two things. The overall Ryan plan, as it's been described, says that if you are at or approaching Medicare, in other words, if you're age 55 or above, then there's no change in the current plan. Based on anticipation, you're in it, it's an unfair thing to change the ground rules on you. But if you're younger than that, you're not really going to be looking at a solvent system anyways. So to transfer people then, Marnie, into essentially a Blue Cross Blue Shield type of plan, the numbers are remarkable, what ends up happening in terms of saving. So, and that's true for a couple of reasons. The first is it's based on giving an individual senior more authority in their own purchasing. So look at what happened with Medicare Part D, the prescription drug program. Medicare Part D is the foundation upon which this subsequent proposal is built. So this is not something that's just, hey, let's just try this. This is vetted, it's proven, it's within the Medicare marketplace right now, and it has had the impact of bringing costs down by 40%. So name another government program where costs have come in at 40% or 40% less than what the projections were. The other component is, I don't hear from what I'm hearing from seniors, I'm not hearing them say, I want less control of my future. They're interested in more control of their future. I see that buck 90 sign already as I'm going up and down, and I'm on my iPass, and I used to not notice it on my credit card, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing it on a much more frequent basis on my own iPass.
Right.
There's other states around the nation that don't have this reliance. Other states in our region that are far more well-governed and don't have this reliance on an expansion. So you've got Wisconsin, you've got Michigan, you've got you've got an Ohio Turnpike and you've got an Indiana Turnpike, but that's pretty much the tolling system in those whole states. They don't have just a whole spider web of tolls all across their metropolitan areas. And I think it really begs the question of, what is it that those states are doing so that they've got the ability to fund their infrastructure in ways that they're able to do it in different ways? What is it? How did Wisconsin, for example, approach their pension system, where they've got more flexibility on their pensions or more flexibility on their transportation system? So I'm not interested in laying another toll out on anybody right now.